What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, Dane Martinez. They call me the Spittin' Statistician. And in this episode, we are going to turn our attention to the likely priorities for the Jets in the draft in April. We've been talking about, Aaron Rodgers being gone, Devontae Adams being gone. There is free agency, obviously, but with the scouting combine in Indianapolis on the horizon for next week, let's get a little bit of a preview on what the Jets may do, not only at number 7 overall in the first round, but a little bit later on in the draft as well. We can start with number 7 overall, and obviously one of the hot topics is the idea of, will the Jets use a big time draft pick at a quarterback spot, right? The top two quarterbacks on the board are Miami's Cam Ward and Colorado's Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son. The problem is, both of those guys are likely going to be top 5 picks. And a lot of people think that this year's quarterback draft class is a little bit weaker than previous years. So with the Jets at 7, I don't see them trading up into the top 5, which is what you would probably have to do to get one of these guys. The other thing is, there's Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. He is kind of zooming up draft boards. I personally think it is a little bit of a reach for them to go ahead and get Jackson Dart at number 7 overall. However, there is a quarterback I think could be on the Jets' radar. Not necessarily in the first round, but in the second round, the Jets have the number 42 overall pick. I think that would be a great spot to draft Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. Milroe is really, I think, perfect for the evolution of the NFL these days. He is one of those dual threat quarterbacks at 6'2", 225. He is a prototypical dual threat quarterback. The athleticism is off the chart. And really, look at all the teams that are doing well. They have that dual threat quarterback, whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether it's Jaden Daniels, whether it's Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or others. Really, to be kind of ahead of the curve in the NFL these days, you really need a dual threat quarterback, and I believe this could be the opportunity for the Jets to get one. Now, Jalen Milroe is still a little bit raw. He does still need to develop as a pocket passer, but that's natural. And that's why you have a great guy in Tyrod Taylor who can be that kind of bridge quarterback. There's also talk about maybe signing Justin Fields as a one-year stopgap, and that would be interesting with drafting Milroe in the second round as well, because you at least have that same kind of scheme with another dual threat quarterback. Jalen Milroe out of Alabama is a name to keep an eye on for the Jets in this draft process, not necessarily in the first round, but maybe as we get into round 2, so they don't have to spend the premier draft pick on that. Another way the Jets could go is obvious, and that is building from the inside out. And always we target the offensive line. I mean, the former general manager Joe Douglas pretty much drafted offensive or defensive linemen with his first pick almost every single year. And if you're going to have a new quarterback, whether it's a dual threat guy, whether it's an aging veteran like Tyrod, or whether it's a rookie, you definitely want to protect him, right? I mean, the Jets on defense are pretty good already. The Jets at skill positions are pretty good already, right? So the idea of the offensive line could be an interesting spot for the Jets. There are two that could be available near the back end of the top 10. The first is Will Campbell. He is a lineman out of LSU. What I really like about him, 6'6", 320, huge body. He can be a guard or a tackle. He was literally the top-rated player at high school in the entire state of Louisiana and did great at LSU. Two-time all-conference in the SEC, and obviously in the SEC, there are a ton of linemen, both offensive and defensive, so that is a good honor. I also like that he was a team captain for LSU twice, expressing that leadership quality that we look for in young studs. He is athletic, he is very smooth in all of his sets, in all pass blocking and run blocking, and I really like the fact that most reports say that Will Campbell can play tackle or guard at the NFL level. So Will Campbell might be a great target at number 7 overall. Another offensive lineman to keep your eye on is out of Texas, and that is Kelvin Banks Jr. He's 6'4", 324, first team All Big 12 in 2023, so obviously has that pedigree, has that reputation of being a top-end offensive lineman. The only thing about him is that while everyone says he is great as a pass protector, he may struggle a little bit staying on run blocks for a long period of time, okay? So Banks and Campbell are the two top offensive linemen, and one of them may be there at number 7 overall. Another thing the Jets can do is make an impact player in the secondary. Okay, obviously they have great cornerbacks, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed. I think they form one of the better cornerback tandems in the NFL. What they could do to address the secondary is draft a safety at number 7 overall. And there is an undisputed top safety in this year's class. His name is Malachi Starks, and he is out of Georgia. Just think about it. How many Georgia Bulldogs have been impact players on the defensive side over the last couple of years, especially if you go look to Philadelphia, right? The world champions have made it a habit over the last few years of drafting defensive players from that Georgia Bulldogs unit, right? Whether it's been Dean, whether it's been Jalen Carter who has emerged, and Malachi Starks would be kind of in that mold. He is a safety. He is absolutely the best safety at the class, 6'1", 205 pounds, and he is a really good run defender. At the safety position, he plays downhill. He is a great tackler. That is something that could be interesting. There is something of a need there at safety for the Jets. Guys like Whitehead and Ashton Davis have not necessarily, inspired much. You bring in Starks, and all of a sudden that secondary really once again becomes an elite unit, in my opinion. What's also great about Starks is, for a guy, usually if you're a safety, you're either a great coverage guy or you're a great kind of run stopper in the box safety. Starks can kind of do both. Like I said, a great run defender, a great tackler. He also has really, really good ball skills. When the ball is in the air, he can go up and get it. He can make plays. He made a ton of plays, interceptions for the Georgia Bulldogs in big games over the last few years. I also like the fact, again, just like I said with Will Campbell, being in the SEC means that week in, week out, you are in high pressure games. You are playing against other NFL quality talent. So I really like that about Malachi Starks. He was also an first team All-American last year, the best safety in the nation. The only knock on Malachi Starks is you don't put him in kind of like press man coverage against really fast wide receivers. But that's not what we would be asking him to do with the Jets. As a safety, we already got corners that can do all of that, right? So what I think is a perfect fit. The only question is, generally safeties don't go in the top 10. Would you really invest the number 7 overall pick at that position? That is really the only question about Starks. He would definitely be the first safety off the board. The question is he really worth a top 10 pick? Or is that something that maybe the Jets consider by trading down, accumulating more assets, and going to a spot in the middle of the round where they still think they can go ahead and get Malachi Starks out of Georgia? But I think he would be a huge piece for this defense. The other thing the Jets can do, again, something of a luxury position. But if you remember last year, a lot of people were mocking the Jets to draft Brock Bowers, again, out of Georgia. They ultimately didn't do that. They got Fashanu out of Penn State. And remember also, when I talk about the offensive linemen like Banks and Campbell, yeah, they may have a need on the O-line because both of the tackles, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, they're older, getting on, free agents, always injured. But don't forget that Olu Fashanu will probably step into one of those tackle spots. At guards, when you got John Simpson and Elijah Vera Tucker, they are good. They got Tipton, the young kid at center, so they are good. So maybe they don't have to fully address it with another young player on the offensive line because Fashanu is young, Tippmann is young, AVT is still pretty young. These are all recent draft picks, right? So we'll see if they need to do the offensive line. The other thing they can do, again, the only issue is that this is something of a luxury position. Could it be the tight end? They passed on Bowers last year. There is a tight end in this year's draft out of Penn State named Tyler Warren, 6'6", 260, one of those prototypical kind of mismatched tight ends that we now see in vogue at the NFL level. He is the best tight end in this class. He got Heisman votes, for goodness sakes, as a tight end. He is versatile, and look at the weapon that an incredible tight end can be, whether it's Laporta in Detroit. Obviously, we've seen what Kelsey has done in Kansas City, right? And on and on and on. There are a ton of others that have emerged. It is really kind of a new versatile weapon for a lot of the best teams in the NFL. And Warren would fit the bill. He has good speed, always a threat for yards after the catch or yak afterwards, and they opted not to go for Bowers, and Bowers wound up with 112 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had 150 something targets. This could be a great additive to the passing game in New York, and something that wouldn't kind of conflict with what they do with Garrett Wilson. You know what I mean? Garrett Wilson can still be that outside alpha, and Tyler Warren could be there. The only question, again, like I said with Starks, is would they actually invest the number 7 overall pick in order to do so? Those are some of the spots they need to target, whether it be in the draft or it be making moves in kind of free agency or trade. Quarterback, O-line, the safety position, and maybe a new shining toy for whoever the quarterback is in New York at tight end. Ultimately, here's what I think they're going to do. I think they have a couple of paths they can go. If they stay at number 7, ultimately, I think they're going to draft Will Campbell out of LSU. He is the best offensive lineman on the board, and because of the nature of this year's draft, where you have studs like Travis Hunter, who can, the two-way player who won the Heisman, you have Abdul Carter at edge, you have these quarterbacks, you have guys like Ted McMillan, it could be a luxury to go ahead and be able to get the number 1 offensive lineman at 7 overall. If all things stay the same, that is what I think they are going to do. Take the offensive lineman Campbell out of LSU at number 7 overall and hope that at number 40 some odd overall in their second round pick, they can draft the Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. However, I do think it is definitely possible that the Jets will go ahead and trade, not up, but down, to try to get more assets, go a little bit lower into the teens in this draft, and then go ahead and target either Starks, the safety out of Georgia, or Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, all while accumulating more assets for Aaron Glenn in his first year to get more players that can be impact guys for the 2025 New York Jets. There you have it. That's what I think they are going to do. With the combine coming up and all the draft buzz, we will continue to update this. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to other videos here on Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. We'll talk to you next time. I'm the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, and this is Jets Latest.